Hi everybody, I'm back. Sorry, all my stuff died yesterday. My camera died, my light died, and I ran out of time. So I'm back today with the next, I think this is like halfway through the book, maybe a little bit more than halfway. And this is like my favorite part of the book, honestly. So I left April outside for right now because when I get ready, I get the chicken last. So I go out to the chicken coop, grab the chicken. It's kind of windy here today. I just didn't feel like messing my hair up horribly walking outside. So I might grab her for the very end of the video. Let's jump into this. We're in chapter 30. They have arrived in an area I don't know how to say. Hang on. So the gang arrives in Shilan and they go to a tavern to pick up on some local gossip. This part legitimately made me mad. Sky is an absolute idiot at being stealthy. He has like no concept of subtlety and blending in. So he kind of like ruins things right off the bat as he goes into this tavern. He basically starts demanding answers from people and they're like, who are you?
Who am I? Who am I?
Clearly you're not from here. Malin's sitting there and she's like sweating because she's like, this dude's gonna blow our cover and we're not gonna be able to figure out where these jade pieces are. So then Malin decides, she steps in and kind of smooth things over a little bit with some of the townspeople so they don't stick out too badly. But I think the damage has already been done, you know what I mean? In Ximing, which is the other kingdom now that they are in, black magic isn't forbidden, so it's not a taboo topic, and like people dabble in the spirit realm stuff. It's not a bad thing. When you have Lixia, which is the spirit power, it's actually seen as it's seen as what it is, just a power, and not like some demonic or bad thing. In that context, Chancellor Sima, you know, the bad guy that Malin has met in the spirit realm, he's not viewed as a dangerous tyrant by any means. So Malin is walking through the tavern and she makes eye contact with a broad-shouldered man who looks at her and like beckons her over. It's described that as he's sitting there, he raises like 2 fingers in the air and like beckons her over. I'm picturing something like this. Malin's like, her little hackles go up and she's like, excuse you, pardon you, like who do you think you are to beckon me over? He sat with his head tilted against the wall, his legs sprawled out beneath the table, an air of casual nonchalance about him. He carried no weapons, at least not ostensibly, and though his robes marked him as a commoner, his hair was far too glossy and smooth and his top knot impeccable, not a strand out of place. As I stopped in front of him, he looked up at me and smiled, revealing even pearly white teeth. Definitely not a commoner. Hello, stranger.
Hello. It's hello. Oh. Hello? Like that?
He said. His voice was a low baritone, rich and lilting. What do you want? He kicked the chair opposite him. Do sit. I stayed where I was. Up close I could tell he'd tinted his lip a deep rose hue. The color accentuated his tawny complexion and emphasized the fullness of his mouth. I swallowed. It was impossible not to notice he was the most beautiful man I'd ever seen.
Oh no, he's hot!
Oh no, another hot stranger. So I read that and I was like, oh, we're having a love triangle in this one, aren't we? Clearly this man is very cocky, self-assured, good looking. He is undercover, but not trying super hard since he still looks really put together. Malin and him start chatting back and forth and it's like pretty sassy responses back and forth to each other. As I was reading this, I was like, oh, this is very enemies to lovers coded, you know? The stranger finally admits that he is basically hunting for treasure, specifically jade. So she asks him if he's had any luck finding a jade, and he said yes, because he's found her. He says, I would say like he like leans in and was, I like pretty things. He says in a let me try my richest, deepest, lilting baritone voice. I like pretty things, he said. It's not conspiratorial. Ah! Why am I laughing? I'm trying to like put myself in character mode. Leans in, narrows eyes. I like pretty things, he said in a conspiratorial manner. His eyes flickered across my face. I have a weakness for them.
Pretty hot, huh?
She does try to read his mind, but he has walls up. As she goes to read his mind, he makes a note to her that her eyes are golden. She's like confused by this at first. And then, of course, as things are getting a little more interesting, Sky interrupts by like slamming his hand down on the table in the middle of the two of them and just interrupts the whole thing. He's mad at her for going off and talking to like a stranger by herself. He yanks Malin away from the table and says that he doesn't like the look of this guy that she was talking to. And this is where, again, Sky loses some points with me. Okay, I love a protective man. Like, I don't think being protective is a bad thing at all. But possessive, I don't find that as attractive. I think Sky could have won bonus points for me if he would have noticed this interaction and then stuck off to the side and watched it very carefully. And then if he picked up on like danger, then he could step in and be like, no sir, this conversation is over. But instead he like interrupts it and then just yanks Malin away from the table. He lost some points there for me. Sky drags her outside the tavern, and Sparrow and Tao, however you say his name, they're outside too. She tells them that they're too early and that the jade has not washed ashore yet. Then suddenly Sky starts telling Sparrow and Tao that this isn't a rock. It's a powerful Lixia seal. At first, as I was reading this, I was like, hang on a second. How does Sky know all this stuff about the spirit realm things now? Like, when did this change happen? Likewise, Malin also finds this suspicious because before, when she was telling Sky about spirit power, he didn't really know anything about it. They decided they're gonna wait a day, and if the jade doesn't show up, then they will leave and come back with more men. So when they come back, they'll launch an attack on New Quan, kill Sima, and end this. No pressure at all. So later on, after they've gone to bed, Malin wakes up in the middle of the night and she's like flooded with this exhilarating feeling. She knows that the jade has finally washed ashore. So to hide the fact that she's a spirit medium, she wakes up the guys and tells them, hey, the jade is washed ashore. I know this because I was just out for a walk and I heard some townspeople talking about it, so we gotta go. So they rush off into the night. They find where the jade is. And this section of the book confused me just a hint bit. They found it because apparently a group of fishermen found it. This jade is like suspended in the air and it's glowing. Apparently the magic made this really weird ramp of some sort to get to the jade that she has to walk out on. It's treacherous and no one is going out to get it because if you fall, like you fall into the water and stuff and you'll die. She manages to get the stone and then on her way back, she loses her footing and falls. And then as she's like falling towards the water, she calls upon her spirit power and she's able to like push herself back up the cliffside, and then Sky reaches over and grabs her.
Mission accomplished.
This mysterious stranger that she met in the tavern, he's there and he has like a whole guard with him and they all get arrested. And then Chancellor Sima shows up. He compels the stranger from the tavern to give him the jade piece that Malin had snagged. Malin now finally figures out what the iron does. So she's got these iron manacles on her wrists and she realizes that the iron like completely severs her communication with the spirit world. She can't talk to Qinglong. She can't feel her Lixia. She's basically powerless. Sima orders for Sky to be taken prisoner, but the others to be killed. They want to use Sky as leverage. But the stranger from the tavern, then he tells Sima, like, why don't we keep the other ones alive for right now because they might be able to give us some useful information. They are all tortured. Malin is put up first and she doesn't speak. They're trying to figure out what she knows about the jade and where the other jade pieces are, all that shebang. They use this like torture mechanism where I believe I couldn't tell like if her legs were actually broken or if they were just severely injured. But the torture technique was basically to like break your legs.
That hurt like a butt cheek on a stick.
Sky is tortured. He doesn't say anything. Tao is then tortured, and then Sparrow is put up there, and he breaks.
Dishonor!
He tells the guard that Malin knew about the jade shard, but he wasn't really sure how she knew that. Then Malin's put back into the torture chair. The general tries to force her to eat opium because he wants her strength to be restored, basically, so he can torture her further. She freaks out because this is like such a trigger for her. She doesn't want to become a drug addict like her father. She freaks out and refuses to eat the opium. As she's struggling against this general trying to like force her to eat, she can like feel her power inside of her. It wants to get out and it wants to be released, but it can't. But she feels it like rising up in her body. She ends up blacking out in the chair. And then when she wakes up, the general is sitting there and he's staring at her with like fear in his eyes because somehow there's like a shallow crack that's formed in the manacles. So clearly like the manacles, they don't like completely axe your power, but they definitely subdue it to a degree. And she was powerful enough that she managed to crack her manacles. They've been left alone now. Sky and Malin have a little bit of a heart-to-heart discussion. Sky apologizes for how he treated her the night before when they had their little fight. He wishes that he had more time to try again with her. So the guards show up not long after that and they take Malin to see Prince Lei. So the man in the tavern the handsome devil. He is also nobility and is the prince of Ximing. I wrote a note. You better bet your buns. Malin takes the time to notice the pronounced planes of his chest exposed by his partially unbuttoned robes.
Dishonor! Dishonor on your whole family!
Lei orders her to be put into like another room nearby and says that this woman named Autumn is going to come see to her injuries. Hours later, she wakes up and this strange woman who she's never seen before is in the room. Apparently this is Autumn and she's a healer, so she's been tending to Malin's injuries and trying to get her health back up to par. And she tells Malin, like, girl, you got some explaining to do because I know you're a girl. Malin begs Autumn not to tell Lei that she is a girl, but Autumn tells her, like, I'll lose my job if I'm not honest with him, so he is going to find out eventually. So the days go by very slowly. Malin gradually is healing, but the isolation of this room has caused her to lose sense of time, so she has no idea how long she's been in there. Finally, after she's kind of recovered, Lei calls for her once again, and she's terrified as she's being escorted to his room because she's like, I don't know if this guy's gonna kill me now. Lei commands her to like strip naked and she has to stand there and be like examined, but he doesn't touch her. He just like, I think he's just trying to confirm that she is a girl and that she doesn't have like a jade pendant or anything on her.
Dishonor on you!
I don't know, this whole scene I was like, I don't really know if this is necessary, but maybe in a way it was the most necessary way for him to know for sure that she was a woman without like groping her.
I'll allow it.
So they're like talking back and forth and Malin's getting tired of the trivial questions that aren't getting any answers and she just bluntly asks him like, have you found the jade? Lei tells her that he hasn't found the jade, but then he's like, you should be my ally. We can find these things together. We'd work well together as a team. As they're talking, Lei likes to drink. He's getting pretty intoxicated at this point. Because he's drunk, his tongue's a little more loose, he's kind of talking more. He talks about how his mother was a concubine and wasn't treated with the same amount of respect as the other queens. So clearly, like, his father has several different wives, and I guess they're all considered queens, but, like, his mother was considered less than because she was a concubine. But Lei, due to his, I guess, probably his physical appearance, was noticed more. The other queens didn't like him and didn't like his mother, but they couldn't take their anger out on him, so they ended up taking out his mom. Basically, these other queens had his mom framed for a crime of like treason or something like that, and his father just believed whatever they said, and they had his mother executed, and they made Lei watch. His father is abusive. He has physically harmed Lei. He has, like, at this point during this conversation, he's got like a mark on his face. And Malin recognizes it because it's a mark that she would frequently get whenever her father hit her. And so she has this moment of pity for Lei and she asks him, like, is that mark on your face from your father? I'm familiar with that. And Lei gets so mad because he doesn't want pity and he kind of like loses his temper on her. They fight. Malin throws a teacup at him. He pins her up against the wall and he tells her that he's not one to be pitied. I wrote a note that I don't think she so much as pitied him as much as she just related to him. And I think that's fair because like she feels bad for the circumstances, obviously, but I think she relates to him in that way and she doesn't look at him as weaker as a result. She's just like, oh, I can relate to the feeling of being abused by your father. So the next morning, Autumn comes and visits her. Malin uses this knife that she stole from Lei's bedchambers the night before. She uses to like gouge out her wrist and she gouges it out like underneath the manacle. So Autumn goes off to get a pair of keys and she comes back, unlocks the manacle so she can actually get in there and clean the wound. This was all, like, obviously Malin did this because she was like, I'm getting out of here. So she knocks Autumn out and then she feels bad because Autumn is like she can see it in her eyes, like now she's afraid of Malin and Malin's like stuck again with this, like I'm powerful and I want people to fear me, but then when people fear me, I don't really like it. It makes me feel bad. As soon as those manacles come off, that Lixia just comes flooding through her and it's really overwhelming. No one knows at this point that Malin has her jade pendant still on her. She's sewn it into her tunic.
Clever girl.
As soon as those manacles come off, she can talk to Qinglong again. Now that Autumn is out of the way, she's making her escape, and I found that she just like blazed her way through this palace and found where she needed to go so fast. Like nobody stopped her, which I found kind of odd, but hey, whatever, like logistics, you know? So she busts into this room where the general that tortured her and whatnot, he and his guys are staying. She tries to compel them to go to sleep and it's unsuccessful. So slicing and dicing it is. So she had grabbed a sword from one of the soldiers. Somebody disarms her, and so now she reaches for her spirit power. So she forms water into ice knives and throws them at these guys. It just decimates them. I do really like using an element like this as a weapon. I do think these are cool details. So apparently this room that she's in is like what leads into the prison. So she gets into the prison, she finds Sky, Sparrow, and Teo or Ty. They make their escape from the building. As they're escaping, Lei has figured out that this is going on. So he's like coming after her. So they're outside of the building now and they're running. It's what I think is happening. So they're running for freedom and they're near the sea. Out of desperation, Malin calls upon the power of the sea and she starts to build out this huge wave, and she tells Sky and the others, like, go ahead, I'll distract them and you escape. And so she's raising this like big giant wave and she's gonna, like, I assume, bring it down, kind of like wash them out. But then she is shot in the shoulder with an iron arrow and passes out. Malin is back in captivity. Autumn is back in her room tending to her wounds, and she panics because she realizes she's no longer wearing her soldier's uniform, which means that her pendant, her jade pendant there, is gone and she doesn't know where it is. She starts asking Autumn, like, can you please, please, please get me my uniform back? It's really important. I really need it. Autumn's like, I don't really think you're in a position to make any type of demands right now, which, fair. And Autumn, clearly, like, her little cheerfulness that she had about her, that's like gone. And I don't blame her because Malin straight up like nabbed her, like struck her in the diaphragm, knocked her wind out. Like, the sheer brunt force, I'm sure, like really scared Autumn. So I don't blame her for being upset. So Malin finds out that Sky and the others were able to escape, and she's happy and simultaneously upset that Sky hasn't come back to save her yet. Then she's called back to Lei's chambers once again. She tells him that she refuses to help him unless he does one favor for her, and that is she'll help him if he gives her back her uniform. As they're talking on the table in front of him, Lei has like a whole spread of different books on Lixia-induced disorders and those kinds of things. So he's been reading up on like Lixia and the spirit realm and how all this stuff works. Lei tells her that a Lixia seal can be unmade, but only by its welder. Malin could destroy her seal if she broke it herself, and then she would die. That's the only way that you can destroy the seals. Apparently, if the human host dies, the spirit is weakened and cannot move freely through the physical world. But once they find another vessel, they can return to power. Malin wonders if Lei is planning on killing Seema himself in order to steal the jade for his own use. Lei describes that the relationship of the seal and the spirit is parasitic in nature. The seal survives on the constant nature of humankind, aka like the will to live. Malin understands now that she would have to compel Seema to destroy his seal himself in order to end Seema and to end that threat for this time. Malin's sitting there after she's read this and she's like wondering who her real enemy is. Is it Lei? Is it Seema? Is it Qinglong? Who can she trust in this situation? So Malin's back in her room at this point. That general that tried breaking her legs, he busts into her room and starts beating the tar out of her. And he's going to assault her. Like, he's gonna assault her and then kill her is clearly what's gonna happen here. Just as she's about to black out, because this guy's like, he's like choking her, Lei shows up and he shoves this guy off of her and then like carves out his eye with a knife. This is protecting, right? This is an example of being protected. I kind of find this more attractive because there is an actual threat. Malin is going to be killed by this guy. She's inches away from blacking out, being choked to death. And then Lei shows up and straight up decimates this guy, who was his general, by the way. So he had no problem like killing this guy for almost killing Malin. I find that more acceptable than when Sky like just interrupts because he doesn't like the look of somebody. More points for Lei! After this general dude's been like knocked out, Autumn shows up and she's like freaking out because now Malin's all broken again. Poor Malin, she has had a rough go as far as her body being able to physically heal. Her elbow's fully shattered. I think both of her arms are broken or something. And Autumn tells Lei, like, you have to pick her up. I can't pick her up myself. It says that Lei cautiously picks Malin up. His eyes are hard and his lips are in a thin line. He carries her to the infirmary and he says, I protect what's mine. I guess you could argue that's kind of possessive, but at the same time, I thought it was kind of sweet. I don't know what that says about me. At this point, Malin's been in the infirmary for like 10 days or something like that. Lei shows up again and he's like, let's ride. You want to come with me? I found the other part of the jade seal. Autumn's like, no, she can't ride. Her arms aren't healed yet. And then Malin's like, get me out of here. Malin decides to go along with Lei and his crew of guys. The party is being led by a monk with a white lynx. And I guess the lynx can smell or somehow, I don't know, this wasn't very clear, and I'm not sure if his character is going to pop up again in the second book. The monk and the lynx lead the way to the next shard of the jade. They go to a smaller village. There's a lighthouse keeper. He has the jade. He was going to sell it to help his family out, and then he willingly gives the jade piece to Lei. And then Lei like poisons this guy and he dies. And Malin's ticked off. She's like, why would you kill an innocent man? And then Lei's like, unfortunately, if I don't kill him, he's going to lead a trail for Seema to follow us. Then Malin reminds Lei that like, it doesn't matter who knows about the jade because Seema can sense it. And then as she says this monk, he like opens up this like foldable iron thing and puts the jade seal inside it and closes it around. And she realizes that they figured out if they put the seal into iron, Seema can't like sense where it is. And so she's like, oh. As they're riding back, Lei explains to Malin that her kingdom has crippled itself because they refuse to have anything to do with the spirit realm, and that Anlai's fear and denial of Lixia is what has set them back in the war. So they ride for Suwon, which I hope I said that right, is the capital of Shiming. They arrive at this imperial palace. Autumn is already there, which Malin's like, interesting. How did you get here so fast? So we get like a brief interaction between Autumn and Lei, and Malin is jealous of their relationship, and she assumes that like they're in a relationship because they're like really chummy with each other, and she instantly gets jealous of this. Later on, Malin goes to see, she's called to go see Lei at the in a different part of this palace. And so she's escorted by a group of guards, and they show up in this room, and there's like a strange man she's never seen before that's like sitting over yonder, and he's got all these people around him that are like, fanning him and feeding him and stuff. She is sitting there studying this guy, not sure who he is, and she feels like a little tap on her shoulder, and Lei is behind her, and he's like, hey, come with me. And so they leave that part of the building and they go out into like a garden. Malin asks him like, hey, are you hiding from that guy? Like, who is he? And then Lei tells her like, no, I'm hiding you from him. So yikes. So they're like walking through the garden, and Lei makes a note that Malin has ignored his gifts. Apparently he stocked her closet full of like gorgeous gowns and like jewelry, and she hadn't touched a thing. She's preferring her like simple man's clothes. Lei asks her like, how can I win you over? She tells him, you can win me over by releasing me. I cannot release you, but I can give you something else you desire. He removed his bejeweled hair ornament and handed it to his guard. I stared at him, uncomprehending. Fight me, he said, smirking. I think it would be fun to be bested by a woman.
I love the kind of woman that will actually just kill me. I mean, really, just absolutely destroy me. I want it to get embarrassing.
Fun, I repeated. You have a very twisted sense of enjoyment. He shot me an insufferable grin. But I think you do too, he cracked his neck. In fact, I think you will find this quite enjoyable as well. Despite my scowl, he was right. After so much pointless conversation, I was itching for a fight. Don't underestimate me, I snarled.
You want to go toe-to-toe with me, pretty boy?
Please, you have to crush me.
She gives him a run for his money. Their fight causes them to fall into the pond. Malin goes down, and her like leg or something gets caught in like a net. She's like trying to swim back up to the top, can't. And then Lei realizes that she's stuck, so he comes down and like cuts the rope or whatever is stuck to her with a knife, and she's able to swim back up. I don't know if that was like some bit of foreshadowing of Lei is freeing her. He's freeing her from the constructs of her society. I don't know if it's that deep, but it was such a random little detail that nobody like commented on really the rest of the book. I was like kind of intrigued that it was left in the book. Autumn walks up over this little bridge, and she's like, what in the world are you guys doing? Lei says, it's such a hot summer morning. Lei tried for seriousness, but could not hide the mirth from his eyes. We decided to go for a swim. In the water lily pond? Autumn surveyed him with her hands on her hips. I glanced at Lei, and an involuntary smile tugged at my lips. Lei's usually impeccable appearance was marred by a long clump of algae perched in his hair, which fell over his forehead to resemble a rather ungainly hat. His eye makeup had smeared, coming down his cheekbones like inky black tears, and his fine indigo robes were bedraggled and dripping pond water. I laughed out loud.
LOL. Smiley face.
Autumn and Lei both turned to stare at me. Hastily, I remembered myself and clapped a hand over my mouth, but Lei was smiling, his eyes crinkling at the corners. He tugged my hand away from my face. You're lovely when you laugh, he said quietly. Okay. That's cute. It was a cute comment to make. And I think this is like one of the first times in the book I think Malin's laughed. Listen, I am a sucker for like cute, fluffy interactions. I freaking love it. There really hasn't been a good fluffy interaction between Sky and Malin, right? Like it just hasn't been there. This is so this little fluffy scene here made me like, it's so cute. I love it. Malin gets her uniform back, but the Jade is no longer in the uniform. And she's like, crap, Lei knows about my seal. So then Malin notices at one point, Autumn is going around and like taking down paintings and stuff like that. And then she lets it slip that they're like taking all the valuables and storing them somewhere safe because they're preparing for a siege. So Malin puts two and two together, realizes that she needs to escape now and get back to Sky. Probably the only way she's going to be able to get out of this is if she seduces Lei. She asks Autumn, hey, out of all these dresses that are in my closet, which color here does Lei like the best? And she picks her out this, she points out like a rosy mauve type color. It's a very scandalous dress. It's very courtesan coated. It's meant to be a seductive, leave little to the imagination type dress. So Malin's like, cool, I'm gonna wear that. And then I'm gonna go see Lei. So she puts on this dress and goes and sees Lei late at night. When she comes into his room, he smiles when he sees her. And, you know, it takes a moment to appreciate the work of art in front of him. And I think that's cute and sweet. He's like about to wash his hands and she steps up and is like, here, let me help you. And she starts washing his hands for him. She's doing this because I think it's twofold. I think she does kind of want to touch his hands. Also, he's got like a bracelet on his wrist and she wants to confirm if it is what she's suspicious it is. And she's like, my jade is inside that little pendant thing that he has on his wrist. So after she sees that the jade is on Lei's person, she's like, okay, now I'm gonna get him drunk because we all know that Lei likes to drink. So she's pouring him wine and trying to get him to drink and loosen up. As this is going on, that creepy dude that we saw earlier that Lei pulled her away from to hide her from, yeah, he's back. Turns out this guy is actually Lei's older brother. I believe his name is Zihan. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but so he like busts into the room, no warning. This guy's clearly a predator. Like he looks at Malin as if she's something to eat. He kind of implies, he says something to Lei like, oh, I'd like to share her with you.
All right, that's it. Dishonor.
Lei's like, oh, I wouldn't do that. She's a poison master. After he says this, his brother is like, oof. Zihan has no idea who Malin is. So he's like telling Lei all of like their military movements and their plans and like what they're gonna do, and she's just like storing this all away for later. She's like, this is great. Then the creepy brother dude, he forces Malin to sit down beside him on the sofa and then kisses her.
Dishonor.
So in retaliation, she bites him and then he grabs a candle, takes it and like drips a bunch of like hot wax on her collarbones.
Dishonor on your whole family.
Lei grabs his brother and pulls him off of Malin. And he has this like weird, tight, kind of smiling expression on his face. As he's pulling this guy away from her, he makes a motion to Malin like, hey, go into the adjoining room, like get out of here. Zihan grabs another candle while it's on fire. He like stabs it into Lei's neck.
Dishonor on you.
As he goes to leave the room, he says, you know, Ray's betrothal ceremony is coming up soon. You worked so tirelessly to keep her safe. Such a pity if all of it came to naught.
Dishonor on your cow.
We don't find out who this Ray person is. I'm assuming it's a woman that Zihan brought up. I'm assuming it's probably like a previous lover of Lei's. Either that or it's a sister. I'm thinking lover though, maybe, potentially. But we don't find out who this character is, and that's probably gonna come up in the next book. So after Zihan is left, thank God, Malin like rushes over to Lei and she helps him clean it up. He's basically got his own like first aid kit there in his room. So she helps clean up his wound and whatnot. This escalates to a little bit of you know, some canoodling. It's kind of sad because Malin is finally sitting there and she's admitting that she does have feelings for Lei. He was not pure evil as I'd initially thought, but that did not make him good. In fact, it was only in relation to those other monsters that I viewed him in any positive light at all. And yet, even knowing all this, I could not deny the way his presence aroused something within me, a low tug in my gut. I did like the interaction between these two. Malin, I think, feels safe with Lei as well. She tells him, you just kind of protected me from your brother. And he tells her, you're not his toy to play with. You are mine, he said, and this time it felt like a confession. The corner of my mouth twitched. He was thoroughly drunk, I could tell. You must earn my trust first, I told him. His fingers wound through my loose hair. And what have I been doing all this time? I thought of our sparring contest at the Lotus Pavilion, the many dresses and meaningless gifts he'd showered upon me. Fooling around. His smile was like a honed blade. Was it not to your liking? I am a difficult prisoner to please. You don't have to be a prisoner, he said quietly. There are other choices afforded to you. Like your lapdog? I asked, a challenge in my voice. I would like you in my lap, he grinned.
Down, Bessie.
But no, I could offer you a far more distinguished position. You could make a very competent General Malin. Impossible. It was a bald lie. Because you're a woman, he raised a brow. Not every empire needs to be so misogynistic, you know. I see the potential in you, even if your online prince does not. Gotta bring Sky into this, huh? So as they're canoodling and messing around a little bit, Malin's like desperately, she wishes this was real and she wants it to be real, but then she's like, I have to escape and get back to Sky. So they're having fun, and then she like reaches up around his neck and unclasps the necklace. Now she's got her jade back. Once he realizes what she's done, he asks her, like, how long have you known that I've had your jade? And she said, I figured it out the other day when we were having our little fight in the Lotus Garden.
I mean, really, just absolutely destroy me.
So the strategic thing for her to do at this point, now that she's got her power back, would be to kill Lei. But she doesn't do that. So she ends up escaping. She like jumps off of this guy's balcony into the ocean below and manages to swim herself to shore.
Now I really wish that I knew how to swim.
She gets to shore. She gets back to camp. She finds Sky, collapses in front of him, and she's afraid now that Sky hates her because she did reveal her spirit power, and she's not sure how Sky is going to take that. Then this is when Sky takes the moment to tell her, like, hey, by the way, Winter, my older brother, turns out he's into the spirit power stuff too. Sky takes her over to Winter's tent. So they speak with Winter, and Winter asks her, like, would you be able to handle Seema? Could you take him out? And Malin's like, yes, I believe I could take him out because he doesn't have all of his pieces yet. He's weaker. I think that I could end him. But she tells him, I am the only person who stands a chance against this guy. It's kind of sad. She runs into Sparrow and Tao, and they want nothing to do with her now because now they see that she's a spirit medium, and they're like, ooh, she bad now. So that's kind of sobering for her. So she, in the beginning, didn't want power. She just wanted freedom. Then she got the power. Then she wanted more power. And now she has the power. And her friends now don't like her as a result. So she's lost friends due to the power that she so badly wanted. They're trying to strategize a way that they can take out Seema. Seema has another piece of his shard, so now he's gotten more powerful. It makes him twice as powerful as what he was before with that big wall of fire. Like, now he can do even worse damage. They make this plan up that Malin is to go to, I'm gonna call it Mount Fuji, because the way that it's written, if I say it, it sounds like I'm saying something else. I don't. So she's going to Mount Fuji. That's where Seema will be searching for this last chunk of his jade. And she decides, I will go there. I will compel him to destroy the jade himself. And then the seal will be broken. Zook, the Phoenix spirit, that one, her power will be broken. So if Malin does succeed in doing this, Malin will be the only person on Earth with the power of Lixia, which Chenglong, the dragon spirit, he loves this idea. There was an interesting point where Sky says that he wants to kill Seema, but Malin thinks to herself, like, no way, Seema's mine. And this is like another thing with Sky that kind of irritated me. I don't know why Sky thinks like he has the capability to kill Seema himself. He doesn't have any power other than like physical strength. Malin's the one with the power, and he's still sitting there thinking, I'm gonna take him out. I feel like if it was Lei would be like, no, that's Malin, she's gonna take him out, that's her business. Sky ends up confessing his feelings for Malin, and it's kind of awkward. He asks her, like, once this war is over, if she will marry him. Malin is like stabbed in the gut by this confession because he tells her, like, every single day that she was gone, he was just agonized over her safety and whether or not she was ever going to come back to him. She just feels guilty because she has a crush on Lei as well. She can't deny that she also has feelings for the enemy, you know, in this circumstance.
That's rough, buddy.
As Sky is confessing his feelings for Malin, it Comes out that Malin is very much controlled by her fear. Malin realizes at this point that she's been avoiding the spirit realm and she's been avoiding Chenglong. She's been trying not to talk to him. She realizes now she's going to have to tap into that power in order to defeat Sima. She would have to use, she's like, I will have to use Chenglong just as he's been using me. So Malin's sitting there mulling over all of this. Sky's standing there and he asks her what's wrong. She like shakes herself out of her thoughts and she's like, kiss me. Sky's like, are you sure you want to kiss? Like, what if the guys see us? And she's like, I don't care. So they kiss. And Malin's kind of trying to suggest that she wants to go a little farther than just that. And Sky, of course, is like, girl, he's like, hold on, hang on. We slow down, put the brakes on. I knew Sky cared about honor and duty above all else. He wasn't about to have a romp in the forest on the eve of the battle, but still, I glanced at him and smiled. It would have been fun.
Such tricks won't work on me.
Please talk slower.
Temptress.
Wait.
Hey, she was shooting her shot, you know? I bet you $10 had she done that with Lei, he would have been like, hell yeah, Batman.
I mean, really, just absolutely destroy me.
Guy is too honorable for that, I guess. Or boring. So they decide, in order to get to Sima, what they're going to do is Malin is going to be disguised as a concubine. They're gonna take her to this palace or wherever Sima is staying, and they're going to get Malin in as a concubine. Sky is going to be the one that takes her, and then he's going to infiltrate and get into the palace through a set of tunnels. So before they head out on this next part of the mission, Malin tells Tao and Sparrow she is a woman, and they don't take it well. Malin tries to smooth things over by saying, like, I'm still the same person, like, it's still me, I'm just a woman and not a man. Tao counters that she has lied about everything. Like, yes, she's still the same person, but in a way she's not, because she's lied about her identity, she's lied about her involvement with the spirit realm. I understand his anger, but I also understand why Malin had to keep those things private, obviously.
Because if the army finds out you're a girl, the penalty is death.
So it's a bit sad to see like her two friends that she was hoping would have her back. They're mad about her true identity and don't want to have that friendship with her any longer. Later on that night, she has a nightmare that she fails this mission. She's in this nightmare, she's stripped of her powers, her sword, her freedom, everything. That's not what made Malin powerful. Those things gave her power. However, they weren't the original source for what made her powerful. She has ambition and drive and tenacity to begin with. Those are like core elements of like who she is as a person. Those elements is what made her strong. I liked that message that you can achieve skills and, you know, power, what have you, but like really, if that stuff was taken away from you, like who you are at your core, those are the things that made you into that powerful individual. So you are still powerful. That's not everything is fully taken away from you in that context. And despite what Malin tries to convince herself, she does very much care about her family and loved ones and wants love and affection and companionship with people. She doesn't just want power and only power. She wants power, but she also wants those close, intimate relationships as well. We have another interaction between Sky and Malin. Sky says, Winter told me to look after you, that you could become Anlei's most important weapon one day. My shoulders stiffened. Is that what I am to you? I asked him. A weapon for Anlei? Sky doesn't seem to view Malin as just an important weapon. However, that statement makes you wonder. She is still insecure and afraid that's all that she is to him now. But I don't think that Sky views her as just a weapon, but I do wonder if it could progress into that because of his sense of duty to his country and that kind of thing. I do wonder, and that possessive temperament he has towards her, like wanting to keep her locked behind Imperial gates, it does make me wonder if things could escalate that way. I guess I'll fast forward just a tad bit here. We're into like the last couple chapters of the book. Malin goes as a concubine to this palace where Sima stays. Their original plan of Sky being able to like get into the palace and break his way in that way is thwarted because they get there and they separate Malin from Sky and say like no other, like she will be escorted back by our guys And I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I'm not really sure why they were banking on being able to like sneak in there themselves, but whatever. Malin is put into this really nice area with like all the other concubines and courtesans. So Malin meets another prostitute, Diaochin. Diaochin is right off the bat, I was like, I like this character a lot. I bet she's gonna die. Because she was like too cool right from the get-go. Malin comes up with this plan. She's like, I'm going to get into Chancellor Seema's rooms tonight. Like, I've got to do it tonight. So she brews up this tea, and apparently this tea is a laxative, and she gives it to all the other ladies.
Delectable tea or deadly poison?
And they all get hit with, diarrhea later in the day, except for Diaochin, because she took a taste of the tea and was like, this tastes like crap. And she's like, girl, you're poisoning us. Like, you're doing something shifty here. All the other girls get sick except for Malin and Diaochin. And Diaochin's just like, and Malin's like, you're a smart one, you caught me. When the evening rolls around and somebody's supposed to go entertain Seema, the guard's like, well, what's wrong with all the other girls? Why are they sick? And they're like, at the same time, Diaochin says diarrhea, and then Malin says at the same time, lady problems, basically. And the guard's just like, oh, so I guess you two are it. This part of the book is something that could have been written better, okay? This is where I was like, the stakes just don't feel that high. So Malin and Seema, they get into this stalemate, trying to compel each other to destroy their jade. Seema throws Malin off by turning his power to Diaochin and trying to compel her to kill herself. Malin's like, she likes this girl, and so that causes her to let her guard down. And then Seema like hits her from behind and knocks her out. Malin wakes up and she's been manacled. Great, she's caged again. She's been gagged, she's been stripped naked, she has no weapons or anything on her. So as this is going on, who of all makes her appearance? Lei comes bursting into the room. His eyes go to Malin. She's sitting there like completely exposed, and he immediately goes up to her, takes off his robe, and covers her with it. And I was like, he's winning more points for me. Like, he doesn't sexualize her in that moment. He sees that she's vulnerable and like under attack, and he immediately goes to basically give her dignity back. Malin realizes that Lei is not trying to steal the jade for himself. He's genuinely trying to destroy it. There's some fighting going on. This was weird. Malin crashes into Seema, and as a result of this collision, they both fall into the shadow spirit realm, where they fight each other with the full power of their spirit powers. Malin realizes the trick with compelling one another to do something was frighteningly simple: make it come from within. So Malin thinks to herself, what would make me want to destroy my own seal? The idea felt viscerally wrong. Destroy the only thing that lent me power, that made others heed me, that offered me a chance at freedom? Your vengeance only makes you more of a slave to Zook's whims. Do you remember who you were before you found her seal? Did I remember who I was before I inherited my mother's necklace? This last part of the book was not, I don't think the ending here was as well written. Basically, Malin then convinces Seema to destroy his seal. So he destroys it, and then she sees Qinglong, and he is mad. He's so mad at her. You're even worse than your mother, he said, yellow eyes flashing with venom. I should have you die a worse death than her. I went utterly still. You killed my mother?
What?
Then that's another, I guess that's supposed to be a big reveal that Qinglong was the one responsible for her mother's death. But we don't quite know why still. Maybe it was because she also refused to go and get the other seals for him. I don't know. We'll probably find that out more in the second book. So Qinglong tries to drown Malin in the spirit realm, and then Lei brings her back using Lieutenant Fang's little iron armlet thing that remember Sparrow stole in the very beginning of the story. So that came back into play. There's lots of fighting going on as she's brought back. Tao goes to kill Lei, and she stops his blade with her hand, which, ouch. She's like conflicted there because she doesn't understand why she just saved him. And I was like, girl, I understand why you saved him. You're attracted to him. You care about him. He made you feel safe. He made you feel like somebody. He made you feel, okay to be a woman, that you're still capable of powerful things just because you're a woman. Like, it doesn't matter that you're a woman. He wants you to be a general. Like, we get it. There's no real mystery there. So I wrote the note here that Sky kicks Lei in the face at one point, and I'm just like, Lei says something particularly infuriating to Sky. I watched the muscles in Sky's face contort. Before I could stop him, he kicked Lei viciously in the face. Sky, I cried out. I was certain this went against treaty protocol. Lei had fallen to the floor. He sat upright with effort, his teeth gritted. He was going to get a very pronounced black eye. I said I'd keep you alive, Sky warned, his voice dangerously low. I said nothing about injuries.
Okay, enough. We're gonna stop fighting, we're gonna lie down, we're gonna triple spoon like grown-ups.
Lei ignored his threat and glanced at me. He's a real charmer, said Lei. I can see why you chose him. Though I was much better in bed, wasn't I? Sky snarled and lunged at him, but I jumped his way. Sky, stop, I shouted, grabbing him by the shoulders. Can't you see he's baiting you? It's fun, isn't it? Said Lei from behind me, hurting people.
Oh, girls, you're both pretty. Can I go home now?
I gripped Sky as tightly as I could. He was breathing hard, his chest heaving. I released him only when I was sure he'd remember himself. Sky's gonna sit there and worry about that now. He's gonna agonize over that now. Good. So they take Lei as prisoner, but in a way, it seems like he still has the upper hand. So as Lei is being taken prisoner, he tells her, my mother foresaw my rise to power. She failed to foresee its cost. His expression turned cold. Her life. My throat went dry. She told me a girl with golden eyes would have the power to change my fate and the fate of the three kingdoms, he continued. But she failed to foretell what a little menace you'd be, his eyes sparked, and how distracting.
I mean, really, just absolutely destroy me.
Lei bringing up those few times that Malin had gold eyes, there was a reason for that, because he was like, this was foretold to me. Then we get a brief moment where Lei has an opportunity basically to reveal Malin's true identity, and he chooses not to because he refers to her as her boy name, which was Ren. And I was like, green flag alert, like he's literally a prisoner, and we know he's antagonistic and spiteful and likes to cause drama, and he chooses still to hide, or he chooses to protect Malin's actual identity still. So a week goes by, Lei's in captivity, and the platoon is going to be recognized for winning this war, and so they're going into the big fancy palace. She's riding behind Sparrow, and she thinks to herself how Sparrow has just ignored her this entire last week. She said he replaced her with new friends as easily as changing his clothes, and I was like, ugh.
Emotional damage.
That hurts. That hurts. I feel like we've all had a situation like that where somebody was so close to us and then they just write us off. That hurts. So like they're going into this palace and everybody around her is really excited. And she says, why don't I feel more excited? I wondered. The dragon's vision was coming to fruition, just as I'd hoped. I was getting what I wanted, wasn't I? Honor and glory and recognition from the Imperial Commander himself. I had secured victory for my kingdom and, more importantly, for my family and those I loved. I had proven myself not only to my squad or to my company, but to the entire three kingdoms. I had gotten everything I once wanted. Why do I still feel so empty inside? Sometimes, like, the things that we think we want in life don't actually get us the happiness or security that we're hoping for. So we're in like the last 10 pages of the book. Now they're all standing in front of the warlord, and he's recognizing them for their achievements. I invited you here today to honor and commend you, for my son has informed me of your valor and bravery in battlement. His eyes swept over the platoon before landing on me. Especially you, High Ren. I stiffened, peering up at the warlord. He looked impossibly far away on his dais, unreachable. Prince Liu spoke of how you killed Chancellor Sima in single-handed combat, how in the face of crisis you demonstrated composure, courage, and outstanding virtue. I opened my mouth to protest, then shut it. It was not the honorable battle the warlord imagined. It had been chaotic, frightening, devastating. The phoenix's scream still echoed in my nightmares. But of course, no one knew what had really happened. No one but 3 people knew how I'd infiltrated the palace. I glanced back at Sparrow, whose face blazed red as he averted his eyes from me. He looked furious. For your many accomplishments, you should be appointed to the position of highest distinction. I would have you lead my battalion if you accept. Your Imperial Majesty. To my astonishment, Tao stepped forward, bowing before the warlord. As he passed me, he averted his eyes. His face was grim, his back stiff. I apologize for speaking out of turn, but I cannot allow this travesty to stand. Sky's face had gone white. It is a perversion to our kingdom and our social order. High Ren is a liar and a traitor. He swallowed thickly. In his hesitation, Sparrow ventured to his side. High Ren is a woman, said Sparrow, and now I understand why he had not been able to look me in the eye. For a second, no one spoke. Then Sky shouted obscenities at Tao. So I was a little shocked when I read that. I was like, oh, her two best friends are gonna like straight up reveal her to the Imperial commander. I'm like, this was not I was not expecting that to happen. I mean, I guess some people would be like, oh, I called it. I figured that they were going to figure out she was a woman. I just didn't think that those two, in front of all these people, were gonna do this in front of all these people and like speak out of turn and whatnot. I was honestly surprised by that. I was like, ooh, that hurts. The Imperial commander, he takes in this information. He offers her two choices. Either she gives up her sword and goes back to living as a respectable woman, or she gets arrested and has to spend time in jail. Malin chooses to be arrested. The book ends with her being put in a cell, and she just starts laughing. I lay back in my prison cell, and at last I let myself laugh. Madness, I knew, was catching. They had locked me away and forced me to submit, and now they believed themselves secure, their power restored, their ways of life cemented in stone. But they did not know. They were not safe. I would never relent.
Vengeance will be mine!
And so I was like, okay, her jade seal, right? Where is it? I'm like, did she swallow it? She's got to have it somewhere on her person. I think I'll be interested to see like how the second book goes, but I think she has her jade on her, and I think she disguised her, maybe like a fake jade, so they thought they were taking it from her, and then she's got the real one on her somewhere, whether she swallowed it or, I don't know. She can get creative, I suppose. She accepted the jail time, and I wonder if that's because she knew all along, like, I'm probably going to be turned in at some point. I need to be able, they're not taking my seal from me. So it should be interesting to see what happens. The book ends with like an official decree over basically the crime that Malin committed, and there's like an article about her. She's considered it's a biography of notable war criminals. Okay, things that I like about this book. I think Malin as a female main character is good. I don't really have that many issues with her. I think the inner turmoil that we see her struggling with, I think it's relatable. I think it makes sense. She's a young woman. You have to remember, she is only 18 and she's lived in an abusive household, and she is reckless. She's reckless because she's been trained to obey her whole life, and what good did that get her? You know, she was mistreated. I like that she's reckless because it's another character flaw that she has. She doesn't think things through very well. She's very dictated by fear. She doesn't really consider the actions of her consequences in the moment. She gets herself into trouble, and I think that is, I know some people are like, oh, that's annoying. It is annoying, right? Like, it's an annoying thing. You're like, girl, what are you doing? You're not thinking this through. However, that's how people are in real life. She feels like a real character, so I can get behind that. I thought the writing of this book was good. I didn't think, you know, there wasn't like any overly ridiculous flowery language. The writing held my attention. It's not super descriptive, especially, like, I think the world building, I think we could have benefited from some more world building to understand the 3 different kingdoms. We just didn't get a lot of explanation for the kingdoms and stuff. And I think this could have benefited from more description on that front. I liked the magic system. I thought the spirit realm and the elements, I am a huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fan, and I love seeing like the elements used. I really liked whenever Malin called upon her spirit power there and she used water as a weapon. I thought it was cool. I love it. I want more of it. But I think I'll give it credit. The second book, I assume Malin's going to be tapping more into that power, and we'll get to see that in action more, because I'm like, I want more of that spirit power. Spirit animal, I guess, Qinglong, who's the dragon. I think that stuff could have been detailed a bit better, but I liked the concept of the powerful entity feeding off of the host, the spirit and the person becoming one and basically being taken over by the spirit. I liked that concept. I thought it was cool. I actually didn't hate the love triangle in this. I normally loathe these love triangles. We'll see how it's handled in the second book. I think that Sky is a decent character, but again, he flip-flopped back and forth on me and I wasn't sure. I'm Team Lei. I'm rooting for Lei. Let's go. Like, I think he's he's the more misunderstood character, but I think that he has more character and integrity. I don't think he's as misogynistic as Sky potentially is. I just think that Lei's the more well-rounded individual. I think Lei thinks more for himself instead of, but whereas like Sky has this like ingrained sense of loyalty to his kingdom and stuff, so I think that will potentially be a problem. I will be upset if in the second book it turns out that Sky was like secretly bad all along. That feels like, it feels like a cheap writing. I think good characters are characters that have good qualities, but take it to an extreme. So like Sky is kind, he's noble, he's loyal, he's devoted to his duty. Those are good character qualities to have. However, take it to the extreme and make it toxic, because good character qualities can be bad. And I think that if the writer makes Sky out that way, I will have more respect for the author, and I will actually like Sky more as a character because he'll be more realistic. I don't like the cheap, like, he seems so good and now he bad. I think take the good character qualities and make them bad. It makes him a more believable character. Honestly, I kind of liked in the end how Tao and Barrow revealed Malin's identity, because I wasn't expecting it to go that way. I thought it would be a little bit more like we're in a private chamber type thing and somebody finds out that way. I didn't think that they were going to reveal it in front of everybody, mainly because I wasn't sure like what the consequences were for interrupting the Imperial commander. I was like, there's no way these guys are going to have the audacity to interrupt their commander, right? I also like that this book didn't end with like Malin gets whatever she wants. I mean, clearly that would kind of make it pointless, because how would we end up in book 2? I just like that it didn't have a very overly flowery ending. I think Lei, at this point anyway, Lei seems like he's very secure in his masculinity to where he's not threatened by another strong woman. When you meet a man that's secure in who he is, it's a very attractive quality, and I think that that's how Lei is written. Some things I don't like, there was, okay, one of the first things that I noticed in this book was there was no real explanation for how Malin blended in with the guys. She didn't change her voice, at least not, that wasn't described. Like, no one described her changing her voice to sound more like a guy. We know that she's shorter than the men, and we also know that like a lot of guys call her pretty boy because she's prettier than the other guys. I don't know. I felt like just a little bit more description of her hiding her identity would have been beneficial. There's no talk of her having periods. How did she hide her periods? It just felt a little bit too unrealistic there. But again, this is a romantasy type style book. It's supposed to be a bit of an escape from reality. So if it's not hyper realistic, I'm not gonna lose my mind over it, you know?
I'll allow it.
Honestly, I think Chancellor Sima, I think he's just lackluster as a villain. His motives for being the villain, his like desire for revenge and stuff like that, that's fine. Those are good things that would motivate you to seek out vengeance. Again though, it just wasn't explored enough, and I didn't get that sense of the stakes weren't high enough. The final fight scene, very lackluster, which I was kind of disappointed in, because you had these two people with these spirit powers fighting with full force, and it just I didn't get it. Yeah, it was disappointing for me, I'm not gonna lie. I thought the reason for the war wasn't very well explained. After I went through and like purposely looked for why the war happened, I was like, no, like the author does describe it. I don't know what it is. It just feels like she didn't describe it very clearly. It was like you got it in chunks, and it was a little convoluted. It was a lot of material. It was a lot of information with not a lot of explanation. So it was hard to track with. You're like, okay, I kind of grasp this, but I kind of am missing parts of it too. I think it could have been done a little bit better. Magic system was cool, as I said. It just needed to be explored more. Yeah, it needed to be explored more. And again, maybe book 2, I think book 2, it's going to be explored more for sure. So I'm not gonna like hold that against the author by any means. She may have been keeping things kind of more on the cryptic side because book 2 goes more into that. And in a sense, like she may have done it because Malin herself like doesn't know that much about all of that. Remember, she's been told like all of that stuff is bad and she's not allowed to be involved in any of those things. So that might have been purposely done, or it could have been just not written well. I don't know. I think that, again, when we go back to like the magic system type stuff, there wasn't super great explanation as to how Malin would know to find Seema's jade pieces. That's kind of glossed over. My one question was, why is it that Malin can sense somebody else's jade? Like, I was initially thinking that she would only be able to sense the jade, her own jade, not somebody else's. I don't know. I was a little bit unclear on that, and again, it was quite glossed over. It was kind of like just, it was like tossed in there. Like, I think the writing in here is pretty good. I just don't know if she writes battle sequences very well, because all the battles were pretty short, and it seemed like Malin was just able to get through things like really fast. Like the end battle was lame. So the battles in this book are not great. The fight, so she fights Sky and Lei, and I think both of those fight scenes were better detailed than like the actual combat scenes. Okay, so I went and grabbed April for the outro. Here she is, my little fluff ball. So yeah, I really liked this book. I thought it was decent. I didn't take it too seriously though. I think some people take these books too seriously, right? Like some of the reviews I read, I'm like, guys, it's not that deep. This is a book that I think you can have fun with. It's not horribly written. It is a bit lackluster, like I said, in the combat scenes and stuff like that. I thought there were some good lessons to be had in there with like the inner turmoil and like letting your life be ruled by fear. I thought it was good. I thought it was pretty decent, and I'm looking forward to the next book. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you. I will see y'all in the next one. Toodles!